Hi, I'm Teresa Norton. Welcome to The View from Abroad, a weekly podcast that takes a look back at one of the, mostly humorous, I would say really mostly humorous columns that I wrote for a Hong Kong newspaper from 1993 to 2000. I had just been sacked from doing the morning show for a radio station there. But the South China Morning Post called me up and said, listen, we think it would be great if you did a weekly column. And I was like, I write for theater. I'm not sure. But they said, no, we think it's going to be great. I said, what's the brief? What do I have to write about? They said, anything you want. So I wrote about everything I wanted to: married life, political correctness, the fine art of flirting, aging, national identity, parenting. So looking back 30 years, as I was packing everything up to move to Portugal, I was going through some of those columns, and I got to tell you, some of them shocked me as inappropriate in the world we're living in today. But some of them shocked and delighted me for the very same reason. So each week I start off by reading one of those columns, and then I interview a guest to discuss how and if our opinions, our beliefs have or have not changed over time, and why. So my guest this week is Katherine Sellery, who I am so fond of this woman. She is the CEO and founder of Conscious Parenting Revolution. She's one of the authors and pioneers of the guidance approach to parenting, the basic principle of which is that children have equal moral worth to adults, and that like adults, they have the right to meet their needs, and this includes the need to feel in command of their own lives. She's the best-selling author of a book. This is such a great title. I mean, who doesn't want this book? 7 Strategies to Keep Your Relationship with Your Kids from Hitting the Boiling Point. And we're going to hear more about that, and also a special gift that's available to us during the commercial break. But before we get Katherine in the studio, let's kick off with that newspaper column that I sent to her last week. It was published in the South China Morning Post on October 12th, 1996. Chicken feed and fairy dust. I don't know, maybe I'm nuts, but the more I see of the world, the more I think I'm missing. I've just returned home from Perth, where I stayed for 2.5 weeks with Kate, her 2 children, Amy and Patch, their cat, Lucky, and 3 chickens. My evenings were spent in a theater with roaring grease paint and smelly crowds, but my days were often whiled away at their home, hanging washing in the backyard or sitting at the kitchen table talking about our families while she made tuna patties or lemon cake. One morning, very early, an old man arrived at the front door with a bucket of fertilized eggs for the hen, who'd gone clucky. She felt the need to nest, so the kids will have baby chicks to hold by the end of the month. Kate is funny and bright and runs her own freelance business, but feels ready to get back into a full-time job. Her kids are in school all day now, and she's worried the balance between home and career is tipping too much in favor of the chickens. Kate is afraid if she doesn't drum up some business, the parade will pass her by. "You're an inspiration," she said to me. "You've got it all together," she said. "You're really living your life," she said. I watched her laughing with Amy and Patch as they bounced off the walls in ecstatic anticipation of the next day's trip to the Royal Show, a sort of county fair, their faces still covered in bright red lipstick they'd used earlier as war paint during a costumed wrestling match in the hallway. Missing were any admonitions for them to settle down or clean up. She just sat and enjoyed watching them whip themselves into a frenzy, imagining the throw-up rides to be conquered and the show bags to be purchased at the fair. I noted that when those kids had Kate's attention, they held her full attention. No glazed eyeballs and distracted while composing faxes or reading memos or writing columns. I worry that I'm marching too quickly to the beat of a different drummer. "You're an inspiration," I said to her. "You've got it all together," I said. "You're really living your life," I said. Patch and Amy had fading lipstick marks on their faces for most of the last week I was in Perth. As I picture them now, I'm reminded of a conversation I had with a woman in a shop in Fremantle called the Pickled Fairy. Actually, the woman was dressed as a fairy. All the clerks in the shop were. This store was basically miles and miles and miles of pink nylon netting sprinkled with buckets and buckets and buckets of glitter and sequins. Floor to ceiling, wall to wall, fairy stuff. I have never been in a girlier, frillier, more foo-foo place in my life. In the center of all this fluff is a wishing well overflowing with pink paper hearts onto which little girls have written their heart's desire. I wish I was magical. I wish I was happy all the time. I wish I could do everything the best. As I was leaving the shop, I said to Tinkerbell, the cashier, that if my daughter were with me, I'd never get her out of the store. I'll give you some fairy dust to take home to her. And she handed me a little sachet of very fine pink, purple, and silver glitter. They never get it all out of the hair, she laughed. I'll be following her around with a portable Hoover, I said. Don't you dare, she scolded. She looked serious. Well, as serious as a grown woman in wings made out of pink pantyhose could look. I'll be watching, said the fairy as I left. By the end of the trip, I was so desperate to get back to my own children I could hardly stand it. Career schmamir. I was feeling distinctly clucky, ready to spread my wings over my own little chicks and cover them with lipstick and fairy dust. Kate will think of me, from time to time, I suspect, as an inspiration of get up and go, and I will think of her keeping it all together. But I imagine if we were standing over that wishing well in the Pickled Fairy, we'd find our heart's desire is the same as all the other little girls. I wish I were magical. I wish I were happy all the time. I wish I could do everything the best. Katherine Sellery, welcome to The View from Abroad.
Oh my God, I so love being here. I was saying to my daughter yesterday, it's kind of like being with a hero of mine. Seriously, as you know, I'm a serious groupie. I listen to your morning show on my way to work in Hong Kong every day. And I think I've told you, like John and I, my husband would have to pull over to the side of the road. We were laughing so hard. I mean, you are one of my heroes.
I'll tell you something very funny, Katherine. I mean, it's a mutual admiration society here. You need to know that.
I know.
I was thinking back, and I was thinking, where was the first time I met you? And I was having a business lunch with your husband, John, and he said to me, could my wife come along? And I thought, well, yeah, sure. I was doing coaching and training and stuff. And I thought, well, this will be interesting. And it was, we ended up talking about that crazy radio show. Well, listen, sweetie, I am so glad to have you with me. I sent you the column we just heard last week.
Yes.
And, listening to it and looking back, I guess the point that I was making was this sense of FOMO that a lot of friends who were also working mothers, we were at least conscious of that fear of missing out.
Yeah.
My friend Tara, who sadly passed away, but she was a professor at the University of Hong Kong, a very engaged mother and a very happy working mother. And we would reassure each other that a good mother is a happy mother.
Yeah.
And our work made us happy.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, watching Kate, uninterrupted attention on those kids with nothing to distract her.
Yeah.
What did you think when you were reading that?
Well, yeah, no, it was such a great article. Of course, I spend my whole life coaching parents, and I coach the parent who is, and I'm just thinking of one mom in particular, like rocket scientist type mom, came right out of school, went to work for Goldman Sachs, was on the fast track as a woman, as an Asian woman. Undoubtedly, she would have been president of the United States by now, or head of Goldman Sachs, and took that step back away to do the parenting and was just so torn inside. So torn inside. And I remember coaching her and saying, oh, for the love of God, go back to work. Please, it'll be better for all of us. She wanted a career so desperately and felt like she had to make a choice.
Yeah.
And she did go back, and she's still a good friend of mine, and she works, and does so well financially and has managed to finagle it so that she's really only working half time, right?
Right.
So she's
Right.
kind of getting the best of both worlds. And there's a part of her, I mean, let's be frank, there's a part of her that thinks if I'd been able to dedicate it completely and not have been torn, I really would have been head of the bank.
Right.
I was
Right.
that good. She said to me, I was that good. I am
Yeah.
that good. And I was like,
Yeah.
I get it. And I don't know
Yeah.
what to say about that torn thing other than I think it's present.
And I think it's this expectation that went around for a while that you can have it all.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's trade-offs. That's all
It's
it is.
trade-offs.
That's what
Yeah.
life is. You don't get all of everything in life. You get some of this and you don't get some of that, right? You know?
It's so true. I can remember even with my own daughter
Mm,
that she was in high school and, she was in Hong Kong at HKIS. And I was doing a lot of speaking all over the place, a lot of it
mm,
outside of Hong Kong.
right.
And I thought, she's in high school. She doesn't want to see me. This isn't even going to be an issue until one day when she said something along the lines of, I feel like you've chosen your career over spending time with me.
Ouch.
I know. And it took me for such a ringer because I remember thinking, God, when I was in high school, all I wanted to do was have complete autonomy. And I was the one caught, sneaking out of the house at night, right? And I was the one thinking, well, this will give her like free reign. And she didn't want it. She wanted mom time.
Uh,
God, it just threw me for a loop.
just looking back on parenting and
Yeah.
thinking to myself, there was sort of a story that I told myself about being the mom who was, kind of let's keep everything straight. Now, no chocolate fingers on the walls and stuff like. And I had convinced myself that was, probably because I had a bit of fun with that kind of thing in the columns, but I started to think that was a true story. And I had an example. Let me give you an example.
Sure.
Christmas. The Christmas tree is mommy's thing.
Yeah.
Mommy decorates the Christmas tree. And I would give the kids, they each have their own, they still have their own ornament that at 38 and 33, they still, they hang those on the
Yeah.
tree, but
Yeah.
mama does the tree. And
Yeah.
when they were little, I'd say, well, you can put this ornament anywhere you want. They'd walk out of the room and I'd think, but except there, not there, I mean, so those kinds of things, I thought I must have been doing that crazy shit all the time.
Yeah.
And then I had such a blessing because when I was getting ready to come here, I was going through 9,000 piles of videotapes, family videotapes, and I took the time, because I had the time, to digitize them.
Oh, nice.
And I got a chance to watch them. And it was chocolate ice cream everywhere.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter where anything was. This was like a story I was telling myself about this kind of over managing mom that wasn't really the truth. So, yeah, I guess that kind of comes up for me too. And it takes me back to the end of that column when I'm in the fairy store,
with
right?
the fairy dust.
Right.
Yeah.
You let
Right.
that
I
little
can
girl
remember
make a
as
mess.
a kid growing up, one of my dear friends down the road were the Peabodys.
Right.
And the Peabodys were just, I was attracted to them like gravy on rice. I just wanted to be there all the time. And, as I look back on that friendship a million years later, my mom she was a proper Southerner, honey. She was from New Orleans, Louisiana, and everything had a place and everything in its place. And, I grew up like terrified. Actually, there was the only woman on the planet, only person on the planet that could scare the shit out of me. And I think about that and laugh because she was this, just like ruled with an iron fist kind of person.
Right.
Who, of course, I admired, and she was just like my hero. And in any event, I would go to the Peabodys, and it was mayhem, total mayhem.
Did you
And
have
there
siblings? Let me just
I
interrupt one
did.
second.
I'm the fifth. I'm the fifth.
Okay, I'm sorry, because I was just wondering if the
Yeah.
reason it was kind of mayhem there and not at your place because you were the only one. No, you had
No,
siblings, right?
no,
Okay.
no. There were plenty of us. It was the iron fist that really, like, that white living room was going to stay white forever. Okay. And why anybody would get a white living room with small children or any
5 of
children
them. I don't
ever
know. That's
is
a little
crazy stuff.
nutsy.
But
Okay,
it's like
so anyway,
everything.
it was
Yeah.
mayhem
It was just
at the
mayhem at the
Peabodys.
Peabodys. But it was like there was so much creativity in the mayhem.
Yeah.
And it was just, there didn't seem to be order anywhere.
Mm,
And I just loved that. Now I'm sure,
yeah.
there's a good in between place, but
Yeah.
that magic as a mom myself, I started, I just remember we had one of those little like tent castles, and it had
Yeah.
a million balls inside. And the
Yes.
big fun was for them to jump in it and watch all the balls flow out. And I
Right.
would literally run and pick every ball up and put it
Oh.
back in there. And I would do that 400 times a day.
See,
And finally,
this is probably what was going through my mind, thinking,
yeah,
my God, what have I done to my children?
yeah,
You know?
yeah,
But as it turned
exactly.
out, I didn't do anything to
Turned
my
out,
children.
yeah, they're
They
fine.
had chocolate
Exactly.
fingers all over the walls and I didn't care.
Yeah,
But
and it turns out all is well.
yeah, all is well. You know what, the end, I sent that column to a gal who's become a good friend of mine, and she is here in ex Hong Konger in Portugal, and she wrote back to me and she said, "Oh, I'm going to take those last 3 lines, that idea of I wish I was magical, I wish I could do everything best, I wish I was happy all the time." And she said, "That will be my mantra." And I wrote back to her and I said, "Darling, those are impossible aspirations."
Yeah. And it's so funny you would say that because, um, there's a movie P and I were watching last night, and it's called Inside Out. Maybe you've heard of it. It's one of those Pixar films, and the new one has just been released. And we thought, okay, we have to watch number one first before we watch number two. And I didn't watch one for ages, so it was a brand new experience. And what was so fun about it is how beautifully they've depicted the so-called emotions that we don't want to have. And sadness, as it turns out, plays this crucial role in the story because it's
Mm,
only through that experience that the little
mm,
girl can emote in a way that then brings the attention that she needed to be able to heal the wound. And it
right.
was just special. Yeah,
Yeah.
really beautiful.
There's a column I have that is coming up at some point, and it's about Sam as a little boy
Mm.
having his best friend leave Hong Kong
Oh,
forever,
gutting.
right? Which is something that those of
We
us
went
who
through
had
all the
kids,
time. Yeah.
any expatriate parents that are listening,
Yeah.
and even whether expatriate or not, that idea of somebody moving away forever when you're little. Anyway, listen, we need to take a break. We need to take a commercial break. And since I don't have any commercials, you're going to be the commercial break.
I love that.
Katherine, I know you hold online workshops. I know
Yeah.
about that. I mean, it's such it's a great resource for parents on this conscious parenting revolution. You've also written a couple, not one, but a couple of best-selling books on parenting. The one I want to talk about is the 7 strategies to keep your relationship with your kids from hitting the boiling point. Can you give us an infomercial, snapshot of like, what can we expect to take away from that book?
Absolutely. I guess after you've been doing what you do for decades, like I have, you begin to see some patterns. And I recognize, God, there really are just a few things that if parents wanted to just shift it and have the closeness, I think every parent on the planet really just wants to feel that really close, like we're in this life together thing. And so I identified those sort of 7 pillars that if we could work on just really honestly, it's done and dusted. And so that's what the book really helps parents with, is that they can get this and they can just implement and they can watch how powerful they are at shifting
Wow.
dynamics,
Yeah.
healing relationships,
Yeah.
and creating what they would really like as their home and family life.
Right. Because I have many young friends who are young parents, and it's so hard watching and hearing them go through phases with their kids where they feel like their kids don't like them anymore, or
Yes.
there's just it feels kind of out of control and
Yeah,
overwhelming. Can you give us just one pillar?
absolutely. So the biggest thing parents don't realize is that retaliation, rebellion, and resistance the 3 R's. The 3 R's represent essentially 75% of behavioral disruptions.
Right.
Think about it. So retaliation, rebellion, and resistance, if they represent 75% of your problems, here's the key. They're activated by a controlling form of discipline.
Right.
So if you shift your discipline to guidance instead of power over, do as you're told. If you don't, you're going to go to your room, no dessert. I mean, that level of what we call rewards and punishments in order to activate behavioral change. Well, it activates behavioral change potentially out of fear of what you're going to do to me, not out of consideration for understanding your point of view or why you would like me to shift my behavior. That's really key. If a child doesn't understand what's behind your controlling form of discipline, they experience it as a punishment. And they do it not because they understand like what's going on and how to be considerate of other people's needs, but because of this is what's going to happen to me, which then focuses the attention in the mind of the child on what's going to happen to me, as opposed to what we're really gaming for, which is the awareness of the child of what their behavior is doing to other people.
Right.
So we train the mind of the child away from the very thing we want, which is for them to learn to be considerate of other people's needs, not just their own. And then on top of that, we get them to act out of fear rather than consideration, which then activates retaliation, rebellion, and resistance, which accounts for trying to get rid of problems.
Yes, absolutely. Listen, we have got something wonderful for everybody who's listening to this, and that is that you are gifting us with a copy of that book.
That's right. And go to freeparentingbook.com and you can download it.
Right now. Right this minute. Well, not this second. Yeah. Well, maybe this second. Maybe you can pause this and do that, but come right back.
That's right.
Thank you, Katherine. We will come back to this at the end of the show and give you that free www.freeparentingbook.com is where you want to go. All right. Cue the music. All righty. We're back. Katherine, tell me, this is the fun of doing this podcast is I don't know what word or phrase from that column of mine prompted a story that you want to share with us. So I'm all ears, baby.
Yeah. So actually, to be honest, there were so many that popped up. The story I related to first was when my son was born, and I was a metals trader at the time. I traded non-ferrous metals. Of course, it was tense at times. And I can remember when I was pregnant with him, I was in the middle of a big deal. And so I was in the hospital, on the phone.
Wheeling and dealing, buy, sell,
doing
buy.
The deal, taking care of the problems, baby born, and then baby in arm, doing deal, taking care of the problems. And then I would have our helper, because everybody has a helper in Hong Kong. And she would bring Sam to my office as the little newborn in the pram. And I would nurse him. She would change him. She would walk him around. My office was over on Hollywood Road. She would walk him around the block a little bit. He'd fall asleep. And, he grew up in a pram walking around Hong Kong, which really is delightful. And yet on the other hand, I think to myself, wow, that was one way, I guess, of doing mothering of an infant. I mean, can you imagine the Chinese, families would be appalled. You don't take a child out of the house, I think, for a month, let alone.
Right. In terms of customs. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
All of the customs and so forth. I was just flying, off the seat of my pants. Yeah. And then with Pia, I was still trading, and she came along 4.5 years later. And at that stage, I remember she had me, she had led me down a garden path of thinking that she was just going to be one of those kids who was just like going to, snooze through life. So I would bring her myself in her little car seat, and I'd bring her and I'd put her under my desk, and she would sleep there. She'd wake up, I'd feed her, I'd change her, I'd put her back under my desk. And I did that for 9 months, and she was a complete delight. in terms of she'd be there, I'd be here, I'd be working, I'd do my thing, and then I'd go back to work,
Mommy's
go back to sleep.
feet. Mommy's shoes today. Those are my earliest memories.
Top of mom's
Gum stuck under.
Oh, I wonder what that is. Oh, it's gum.
That is hysterical.
Yes.
Do you
so
know,
funny.
I worked on when I was working, the first station I worked at before you were, I think maybe before you were in
No,
Hong
we were
Kong.
there in 89.
Well, this was in 83.
Oh,
84,
yeah.
85,
Okay.
86, 87. I was working for commercial radio. I had a very crazy show. And I had Sam, and I was also in charge of promotions. And I remember coming into the studio because we were doing some kind of a giveaway. And the guy who was on the other side of the glass happened to be a father. And I was breastfeeding Sam on the air as I was promoting this, charity drive, right? So yeah, we just do. You're going to love some of the columns that are coming up, Catherine, because there are a lot of them about juggling this stuff. It's
yes,
it's not always easy, and it's not always kind. Did you ever have to make up your mind? Do you remember that Love and Spoonful?
Yeah,
it's a bit about that, being a mom who's working.
It is, and I mean, when I saw just in the article the relationship your daughter was there was some agonizing going on there, right?
Yeah.
And you had the vantage point of having been through it all.
Yeah.
And getting to look at her and just be able to first of all, just soak it all in and enjoy it, which is what I kind of feel like I'm doing now. Because my kids are not quite the same. Pia just turned 25 and just got married.
I know, I saw the pictures. So beautiful.
It's just such a delight. And Sam is 29 going on 30 and also getting married soon. And it's at that point in my life where I get to make choices about where I spend my time.
Yeah.
And how I spend my time. And there's almost nothing I would do to not just have a movie night.
Yeah.
And sit around and watch a show and eat popcorn or whatever else is being served.
Right.
And it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
It's just about the quality of time we get to spend together, which is why those relationships that we cultivate with our children are so crucial.
So special. I'm very fortunate. I've got kids who love my company and I love theirs. But, just thinking back, we talk about the agonizing, watching Kate and those kids. And I was touring a play. I loved being out doing this piece and being in Australia, and it felt so important, and it was an important piece for me. But I thought to myself, I just want to get home and see my babies.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm ready to go back and just be with them.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate because I worked in radio. I was doing that morning show, which was the one that the
one I listened to every day on my way to work. Yeah, I freaking loved it.
Well, that meant being on the air at like 6 a.m. So I was going to bed at about the same time they did and getting up at 4:30. But I would be back home by noon. So I had my whole afternoon with my kids. So that was a real blessing. Sure. Yeah.
It's funny. It reminds me when I was a metals trader and I was doing a deal in Russia, just up from Hong Kong, on that side, the Vladivostok side. And Sam was 5 months old and I was breastfeeding. But I had to go. There'd been a problem and I had to go. So I handed the baby to John.
Right.
And I said, here you go, honey. And I take off for Vladivostok and I'm up there and oh my God, I'm literally like my, and
like you're wearing a Mae West.
Oh
right?
My Lordy B. And I'm having to go to I'm like, pardon me, business meeting in Vladivostok. I'll be back in a minute. I'm in the bathroom like, oh my God.
Your boobs are like,
hello. Yeah. Hello. Is there a baby around? And somebody give me their baby.
I was performing in a musical review when Grace was like 3 months old. I used to put gaffer's tape on the outside of my push-up bra because if I had one song or one thought that anything to do with a baby,
Here we
we
go.
were in.
It's dripping, people.
Oh.
It's
And on that rather soggy note,
yeah.
listen, I'm looking at the TikTok here, and I can't believe we've been talking for half an hour.
We've barely gotten started, honey. We could
have
roll for
barely.
hours.
I might have to have you back again.
Well,
baby.
that couldn't be the worst thing.
Okay, so listen, let's get back to that wonderful giveaway. I want to, first of all, let me thank you so much for being with me on The View from Abroad. Can I just indicate
I loved
the fabulous artwork from Sarah Bishop? She has given me permission. I asked her, I said, can I use that as my logo for my, she said, are you kidding? You can take it. Do it.
Oh my God,
so
I love it. I love it.
It's perfect, isn't it? I want to thank you for being with me on The View from Abroad. And I want to remind everybody to download. Now you can do it because we're done. Download that free copy of 7 strategies to keep your relationship with your kids from hitting the boiling point. Great title. www.freeparentingbook.com. That's an easy one to remember. www.freeparentingbook.com. Katherine.
So fun.
Thank you so much. Too much fun.
Have loved it. It's so wonderful to be here. Thank you so much. Mwah.
Mwah. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and see you next time. And remember, breathe all the time and come up slowly.